Hello, this is Leslie Walker-Hirsch, and today I'm talking with Dr. John Allen. John is the facilitator of the Rainbow Support Group. John, I'm so glad to see you today. Tell us, what is the Rainbow Support Group?
Well, it's so great to be here with you, Leslie, and I'm just delighted to be able to talk about the Rainbow Support Group. The Rainbow Support Group, we believe, is the first kind in the country. We started in 1998 in New Haven, Connecticut, at the New Haven. It was at the time called the New Haven Gay and Lesbian Community Center, which is now called the New Haven Pride Center. So the Rainbow Support Group is actually a program of the New Haven Pride Center now. The Rainbow Support Group began as a support group for people with who identified as LGBT.
And what is that?
That stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and actually there's many other initials after that, but basically it's queer and questioning. And we have straight allies as well that participate, but it's really for people that are LGBT and have an intellectual disability. And the group has been meeting monthly since 1998, and it's just a wonderful support group where not only the individuals with an intellectual disability, that's my clock that's going off right now, and but also the staff people and family members. Anyone is welcome. And believe it or not, we actually have several people that have been so impressed with the Rainbow Support Group that they have no connection to anyone in the group other than that they are community members in the community center and have found this to be a welcoming and supportive group for everyone.
Now, how did you first discover that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities needed this kind of support group?
Yeah, I think it's like, I'm sure it's the same thing with you and with many people that work in the profession. You know, I've worked in the profession supporting people with intellectual disability for over 25 years now in Connecticut, and I've worked at several nonprofit agencies. I currently work for the state of Connecticut, supporting people now with intellectual disabilities from the other side, from the funder side. But the when you're just paying attention to the people that you work with, you realize that just like in the general population, some people are straight and some people are gay. And the funny thing is that at that time in the mid 1990s, I was trying to connect some of the individuals that I knew at the agency where I was working with some kind of a support group. And after an exhaustive search of discovered, well, gee, maybe the reason why there's no support groups, that I can't find any support groups, because perhaps there's never been anything like this. And lo and behold, we realized that's exactly what had happened. There was no support group for people with intellectual disabilities. And so we began to start one.
And so now there is. And how do you actually find members for that group, or recruit members, or how do they find you?
Well, we started actually with a half a dozen people at about 4 different agencies that people that had heard about the group. We floated an idea, and we got some members that their staff were very supportive of this. And since that time, since the first 6 people that began coming, and we still have 2 members that actually have been longstanding members since the very first meeting. But people sort of find us. We don't go out and actively recruit. They just find out about us through word of mouth, through the conferences that we speak at, from from the materials that we publish and put out there. People really they find us, and there's a good word of mouth network. And so the interesting thing is that some people, like any group, any group sort of waxes and wanes over time. And we have some people that come for a short period, and then we might not see them for a couple of months, or then we might see them next year or whatever. And so the good thing about it is that we always continue to consistent way, and people know that and they rely on it.
And John, what do you do at the groups? Once the members get there, what do you do?
Yeah. Well, it's so important to meet in a gay space. I want to discount that. It's very important. And while any support group can be, it may seem that the location is not all that important. But for so many people, being at a support group is sometimes the way that they will ever be able to express their sexuality, to be in a queer space and see the posters. And so we gather at the beginning, and we have a sort of a social moment where we're just catching up with friends and hearing about what everybody's been doing. And then it's very loosely based. People just sit down and we go around the room and we share, and everyone participates in the share, from family and staff and the members. And we just get to talk about anything that we want. And surprisingly, it's not a lot of sex talk. There's not a lot of gay stuff going on there. It's mostly just people talking about that, I had a bad week at work, or, I'm going on vacation. But we always do it with a gay sensibility. We encourage people to talk about that they're interested in someone, or that people try to hook up because within the group, if it becomes easier that they can. And we have several people that have formed long-standing relationships, and but we encourage people to use the words, to talk about their feelings and talk about their desires. And if a little sex talk comes up, we allow it and encourage it, as long as it's appropriate and there's nothing unusual or illegal going on. We do allow people to talk about, that they went on a date, or that they wanted to have private time. And so it's kind of the same thing that would happen in any group.
Now, you've called being a person with an intellectual or developmental disability who is also a gay or lesbian individual, you've called that the double stigma. What do you mean by that?
Yes, it really is so true. Uh, as a gay person myself, I often feel that I am a person who is other. But when you are working with folks that have an intellectual disability and also part of the sexual minority community, there really is multiple stigma that they have to overcome in order to express themselves. So, people throughout time who have had a disability have been vilified and have been ridiculed and bullied. And so we all certainly understand that in the profession. But people who are part of the sexual minority community, and while things have gotten so much better in just the last years, the last 2 decades, since really, I like to say, the time of Ellen's coming out from her television show. It really was a watershed moment, and things have really gotten so much better. But there still is so much attached to being a part of the sexual minority community, and then to add on the stigma attached of being a person with a disability. And I'm talking about intellectual disability, but some of our folks have a physical disability. So there's multiple levels of stigma. I do want to share one thing that is so amazing to me, and it still continues to impress me as something that I will never get over, and that is that people that come to the group tend to be okay with being a person who is gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. But what they really have a difficult time with is being a person with an intellectual disability. To be a person with an intellectual disability is still more vilified than to be a person within the sexual minority community. Isn't that an amazing thing to realize?
I have had in my practice people say they hate Howard Stern because he uses the term retard in such an awful way. And even though they don't know what that term means, they know that they don't want to be that. And that's enough to be hurt by it every time it's said. But listen, John, this is such a wonderful thing that you've done for people. How did you ever get that funded? And how could other people in other parts of the country attempt to get a support group going? And how would they go about getting it funded?
Yes. That really is a very important consideration. Money is very important. But you know what? We run this on a shoestring budget. And we got an initial grant actually from the state of Connecticut to through the private nonprofit agency to pay for some to have a therapist there. And that's a very important component. We do need a licensed social worker or a therapist within the group, and we do have one who has continued to volunteer her time since 1999. She was only our second therapist, and she does it as her a philanthropic effort. But there are some serious things that do come up from time to time. People talk about going to prostitutes and engaging in very dangerous types of behaviors, both not practicing safe sex or going to pick up places and meeting other people because they can be so desperate for companionship. But we had initially, it was with a therapist that we had to pay, and then we offered some money to the support we first met at an agency, and we offered a stipend to meet there, and then quickly moved over to the community center, and then to pay for things such as snacks and a few miscellaneous items. But for the most part, we really take care of this without having to pay for therapy costs, and the snacks can be minimal, and we've tried over time to ask people to pitch in a couple dollars when they come to the meeting. But we offer these really at free, no charge to anyone, and we meet at the gay center, and we really if we do something special, like we've been going for the last 6 years, we've been going to the Northampton, Massachusetts Pride Parade and marching in their Pride Parade, and everyone just pitches in and contributes, pays for their lunch or whatever, and the staff that are there, or the drivers, they usually just pay for the gas to drive people up. But outside of that, there's not a lot of cost, maybe a few printing costs or whatever. But that's where it helps to be aligned with an organization that's very supportive.
So, John, if somebody wanted to start up a program, how would they get in touch with you to ask for your assistance?
Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll be able to connect through you,
And
and and also we have a website on the New Haven Pride Center webpage, and there's also a way to connect in there. And we actually have helped some groups start up around the country. I know that there was a support group that we were very instrumental in helping in Minnesota, and there's a very active chapter in Massachusetts, and we had gone to Vermont and helped out up there too. And so we've helped people along the way, and certainly various agencies around the country have been, and actually around the world. We've heard from people in Australia and in Europe, and it's just amazing how this word has gotten out and how much there's a need for this. And I'll say that in my own personal research that I've done, I would estimate that in this country, if between 1% and 3% of the population experiences an intellectual disability, and we tend to use anywhere between a 3 to 5% of the population is gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. I believe that there's about 500,000 people in this country that experience an intellectual disability who would be appropriate for a proposed support group. And so we only have a handful of support groups around the country. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
well, John, I think that when people listen to this conversation, they will be excited to know that this is available and that they could possibly make this happen in their own community. And so I thank you so much for spending this time with me and with the rest of us, and want to wish you a very happy new year in 2016.
Thank
So
you.
long.
And thank you for all the wonderful work that you've been doing. You've been
Well,
such a wealth of information for anyone trying to support people who recognize that healthy sexuality is an important component of the human experience.
wonderful. So long. We'll talk again soon.